Hello, everyone. We're back again this week. The subject is God so loved through conversation. How many of you have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram? On average, how many hours a day do you think most teenagers spend on some type of media? CNN reported that the average teenage spends 9 hours a day in front of screens, whether it be a cell phone, laptop, television, or video games, like my daughter Elizabeth. The majority of this time is spent on social media. Social media is a great way to stay updated, right? On things and people around you. But how many of the people that you call friends or followers do you actually have meaningful relationships with? How many of you actually have meaningful conversations with? The truth is, where there is no meaningful conversation, there is no meaningful relationship. Sure, it's easy and it's important to post Bible verses on your page, but it's easier and important to let people know you believe in God. But most people come to Jesus or to church because a friend invited them through a conversation. In fact, up to 90% of new Christians make lasting commitment to Jesus through a friend who explains the gospel on an individual conversational basis. If that's true, what does that mean for us as people who want to share Jesus? If that's true, what does that mean for us as people who want to share Jesus with? We've got to learn how to share Jesus through conversations. We have got to learn how to develop meaningful friendships. What's the best way to become a better in having conversation? Practice, right? Jesus loved talking to people, having conversations, and often asked questions to get the conversation going. The point is, Jesus didn't just post signs that told people who he was. He simply saw the people around him and started a conversation. In this passage, Jesus asked his disciples. So I'm going to read Matthew 16, 13 through 16. Here we go. When Jesus came into the disciple district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John and the Baptist, some others Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." In this passage, Jesus asked the disciples, "Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, I am?" Let's take a minute and think about what Jesus did here and about the conversation that followed. First, you were the one of the disciples that day, right? What would you have said to him? Secondly, what would make Jesus ask a question like this? If Jesus is God, he already knew the answer to the question, so what would make him ask a question instead of just telling the disciples the truth? Jesus asked questions because he wanted the disciples to think about the questions and to come up with the answer on their own. The disciples replied to Jesus with a list of who others thought he was. It didn't matter that the answers were wrong at first. He asked the question to get the conversation started. The truth. They knew the truth would come out as he continued to ask powerful questions like, "Who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered and said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." The greatest confession is when we exalt Christ as the Son of God. Jesus took the time to ask questions and have conversations, even though he already knew the answers and didn't need to converse with anyone. He listened to the opinions of others, even when he knew they were wrong, because he knew the truth would come out eventually. Jesus started conversations by asking questions, listening to what others said, and responding by asking more questions. It wasn't long until they realized who Jesus was. We can also help others realize who Jesus is through asking questions and having conversations. Going deeper, learn, and practice. Conversations usually start by asking questions. How are you? Hey, what's up? How's your day? But great conversations start by asking powerful questions. That's the first thing we need to know about having great conversations like Jesus did. It's important to remember that you are not teaching, you're letting the other conversations like Jesus did. It's important to remember, Remember what you're not teaching, that you're letting the other person talk and discover. In Matthew 16, Jesus didn't tell Peter who he was. He let Peter answer for himself. Secondly, great conversations are other-centered. That means you have to ask people about themselves. Maybe you're really good at talking about yourself, but that's not a great way to make a conversation. In order to build a relationship, you must ask questions that focus on others rather than yourself. When we do this, we earn the right to be heard. If you show them that you are genuinely interested in what they have to say, you will have a greater chance of having a frequent and deeper conversation. Ultimately, you will be able to have conversations that lead to Jesus. The key is to focus on them and not you. Okay, now maybe you guys, if you guys are listening to me, you can practice having a conversation. I will wait and get my watch here, and maybe you have someone there with you to have a conversation. Forgot what Pastor said, maybe a minute, I hope. That's what he says. So go ahead and just hope you guys are together. Just find a conversation, and whatever I just said, just practice and learn. Go. Okay, great. What was that like? Was it easy to get them talking? Did you learn about your partner that was interesting to you? The third key of having a great conversation is listening and responding. Remember that I told you listen for things that are interesting, that spark an emotion in your partner, or things that refer to their past. This is called active listening. And it means that you listen for things in the conversation that lead to more questions. Part of active listening is paying attention to their emotions. Are they sad? Are they overwhelmed? Are they excited? Respond by asking about it, right? Do they refer to their past or the personal history? Respond by asking them about it. All of those things are keys to deeper conversation. Listening will also help you discover their true need. Maybe it's not just a conversation they're looking for. Maybe they need help with a project or a family situation, or they're struggling in school. Whatever it may be, active listening can help you uncover it. The key is to focus on them and not you. Along with listening and responding to your conversation's partner, you've got to listen and respond to the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is present in your conversation. It may give you the ideas or questions to ask your friend. The Holy Spirit may also help you connect the conversation to Jesus and give you an opportunity to share the gospel. Okay. Practice makes perfect. It may be difficult to have a conversation now, or maybe it isn't, but you will get better at it as time goes by if you practice. It takes time to get really good at things, most things in life, and having a great conversation is no different. I challenge you to start at least one conversation this week. Listen and respond and see if God guides you and the conversation towards Jesus. As we close out, let's all think of one person we can have a conversation with this week, okay? Someone who needs Jesus. Let's pray together that God will help us start great conversations that we can learn to ask powerful questions, that we can listen and respond through the Holy Spirit. Okay? Have a great evening. I'll see you next week. Bye.